leadership. And of course, we shall be looking into some of the statements that he made. He has a knack for talking more about socio-economic transformation and generally about the economy, even when what at a certain point people be expecting is specifics, including, like yesterday, the national resistance movement and all those concerns that had been raised by the delegates in the run-up and during the delegates conference. But here on Morning at NTV, in line with our hashtag that is running on our social media platforms, that is NRM Decides 2025 and CEC at 20, we are going to dissect what the delegates conference and the aftermath is in shaping the political game plan ahead of the 2026 general election. I'll be introducing my guests as we shall be moving for the next 1 hour, but our preamble, of course, still is on the national resistance movement that has concluded its CEC elections, ushering in a new lineup of top party leaders. The contest, marked by high-stakes maneuvering and a blend of seasoned figures with emerging faces, is expected to shape the ruling party's internal dynamics ahead of the general election next year. With me in the studio is Sarah Bireete, a lawyer and executive director at the Center for Constitutional Governance. Many thanks for joining us, Sarah.
Thank you for inviting me, and good morning, viewers.
Later, we shall also be joined by Jonah Byakutaaga. He is an aspiring member of parliament for Hoima East on the NRM ticket, and they will be helping us unpack what these results mean for the party's unity, internal democracy, and the potential impact on Uganda's broader political trajectory as we move ahead. For now, though, let me begin with Sarah. And in light of the aftermath, we have the results in, and the lineup of CEC is now 90.999% clear. What is your take on the whole delegates conference, the results, and the ramifications of the aftermath?
Well, in terms of numbers, I think the NRM party held their largest so far. The national conference, which is the top organ in their party hierarchy. This came about, of course, as a result of creation of new districts and also expansion of the people who come for the conference as delegates. On face value, NRM and the conference looks successful. But what were the scenes coming out of Kororo? We had scenes of fights, throwing chairs, during the special interest group elections, especially the youth elections, and I think there is already a petition with the allegations that the person who won, Brenda, is not the one who was declared. And then, of course, an apparent conflict of the person who was counting and waiting to announce, being the father of the other that was announced. There were also complaints of bribery, of hiding delegates, with many contenders pulling out. So if you follow the trends of people who pulled out, Honorable Mawanda said his delegates, his supporters were being beaten. I mean, this intimidation, I don't know how far true it is. Then you have in the central, Honorable Chwand and others looking at the stakes and the battle. So generally, CEC could be summarized as a battle of ideas. No, as a battle of money, not ideas. And if the party remains at this trajectory, and if you look at the comments of Honorable Mike Mukola before he pulled out of the race, and when he pulled out of the race, he did say that the NRM is just a party for hire, meaning that even a terrorist can come with bags of money and buy off such positions. Uhuru made the same comment saying, I've never seen sacks of money in my life, and he's a businessman. I've just seen them in Kororo. If you look at such trends, the speaker, the deputy speaker, questioning why somebody should use about 5 million or more for a SEC position. Like, what are you buying? What is the business? And of course, then Right Honorable Byakutaaga in her speech did confirm that delegates were paid 300,000 per day. And if you multiply with the 23,000 delegates, that's around 6.5 billion just in one day. NRM has no values or standards that would require investment of such sources of money. They have no safeguards that would stop SEC or NRM structures being structures for hire, where even people don't compete in ideas or values they want to bring into the party, but it's a competition of money, it's a competition of who is wealthier than the other. If you look at the cries and reasons why the Entrepreneurship League could not elect their members, I don't know whether they've elected so far.
No, it didn't happen.
Yeah, those manipulations, then you have no success to write home about in terms of internal democracy.
Okay, we shall be digging a little bit deeper into some of those specifics, but allow me welcome on board Jonah Byakutaaga, aspiring Member of Parliament for Hoima East, City East, and the NRM ticket. You're welcome to Morning at NTV.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, and to you, Sarah, too.
Great.
Good.
Now, the nation is waking up to some seismic shift in the political landscape. We could say much of it was expected, but the fact that it has turned out the way it has, of course, requires for some perspective and thinking, especially on the way forward. First things first, what's your take on where we are right now? That we have a new lineup for SEC, but we're also grappling with a new set of concerns, challenges, grievances within the governing party.
First of all, thank you for having me, and I apologize. I had a long evening yesterday celebrating 4 of my candidates were successful, but nevertheless I'm here. I've caught up with what Sarah was saying as I walked in, and the issue of money, I'll start with that. First of all, I want to congratulate the winners from yesterday. All those who contested yesterday, some of them were fiercely contested positions. I congratulate all of them. It's not easy traversing the country looking for votes. We look in a constituency. My constituency has, 7 parishes and 68 villages. That's a micro bit of what these people had to cover. So I congratulate each of them, and specifically I congratulate the Vice Chairman, Western Region, Honorable Jonah Byakutaaga. He is my city chairman in Hoima City. I was here on Monday and I spoke about him particularly, and Calvin Echodu. I openly asked delegates to vote for those two because I knew the message that they carry. So I'm extremely happy that both of them have come out successful. I contested against Jonah 5 years ago in the NRM primaries in Hoima City. I came second to him. So I'm happy for him that he has made it, and for me as a politician, I hope he doesn't come back to my constituency so I can have time to also build a message.
You are pushing away constitution.
No, I'm happy for him, so let him stay in second.
Oh, you're a rare breed of a Ugandan politician.
But let me just get to what Sarah is talking about. I think I would be telling a lie if I said money was not a factor. It was a factor, and as a party, these issues have been taken note of, and I appreciate the comments that came from the Right Honorable Tayebwa, the Deputy Speaker, the comments that came from Honorable Mike Mukula, the comments that came from the Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga. I think these are comments that have been absorbed by the party. The party chairperson, who's the president, who's our flag bearer, picked those comments. In NEC over the weekend on Saturday, he raised this issue extensively and discussed it. So it's nothing new now to us in the party. I think we've seen it, and for me, I'll state categorically that I do not condone the use of money in elections, bribing candidates, bribing voters. I think it's unacceptable. But What we saw yesterday, I said this on Monday, that there is a transition, and I spoke about a new breed of leaders. This is not a coincidence that what happened yesterday. If you look at all the people that came out of this election yesterday, the entire old leadership has actually not returned, with the exception of the chairperson and the first national vice chairperson. Everyone else, there's a change. We lost two SEC leaders, the two leaders in Karamoja and Northern Region. Those two unfortunately passed away, so there was inevitably going to be a replacement there. In the West, Honorable Bireete Musi has been replaced by a young man that not so many people know about. In the East, Honorable Echodu, known because he contested 5 years ago against, I think the incumbent is Ebuaru. Honorable Ebuaru is an incumbent in Soroti East. So Honorable Echodu contested 5 years ago, so he's not necessarily a new name.
Did he contest for SEC?
No, for the MP race.
MP
race, yeah. So these were not new faces in the political circles. Honorable Jonah, like I've told you, carried the flag for Hoima East 5 years ago. So these were not new faces. But what we saw was new ideas. Sarah spoke about that money came out on top. I do not agree with that, because if you listened to, speaking about these two particularly, Echodu and Jonad, they met with the delegates, with the voters. We were in the middle of our primary election. We made time to listen to them. Their ideas, Echodu carried, his theme was new energy, and it was new energy. Everything he spoke about was different from the politics we've been used to seeing in the party. And that is why they were overwhelmingly voted yesterday. When we were voting yesterday, I can tell you 3/4 of this country expected Honorable Chris Bireete Musi to come through and win the Western Region. But we, the delegates, we on the ground who knew what was happening, knew that Honorable Jonad was going to win this race. And I was accused of they said, listen, for you, you're from the same city as him, and that's why you're supporting him. But I had listened to him. He's an entrepreneur. He's a young man who's employing people from all over the country, northern Uganda, central Uganda. He's invested in the oil and gas industry, personal money. He's supporting so many projects that are building the youth. People need to stop underestimating the power of the young people. This vote was young people speaking and saying that the old leaders are no longer representing what we want. We are a newer generation. We are young people. Our demands, our interests are not being met. Now, this was, to borrow a word from the NUP, this was a protest vote, if you like. It wasn't about money. Whether you put money anywhere, this was simply a vote of young people saying that we want leaders that are going to represent what we want. And that's what happened yesterday.
Yeah, I'm glad you're very passionate about the messages that were affronted by the very young contestants, especially Jonah Asimwe and Calvin Echodu. But if the words of Captain Mike Mukula are anything to go by in the run-up to his concession, the connotation of money was so overwhelming, to the extent that a man we know to be moneyed in our average, not even average circles, entrepreneur circles, agreeing to the fact that he had been beaten to that, I think completely makes your submission one that is either overly, I don't know even how to describe it. There's something you're not talking about, especially generally speaking about the SEC elections. Those are two candidates. But when you look at the position of the first vice chairperson, female, the Entrepreneurs League, which was halted. I don't know what the dynamics mean, since those delegates didn't vote. You know, I want you to, I don't ask that you be honest, because you haven't been dishonest, but I want you to be realistic. Yeah, the position of the first vice chairperson, female, had staggering sums of money dished around. What does that mean?
So I speak for myself, and I'm a very straight speaking person. I did not receive any money from any candidate. Okay, I drove my personal vehicle last week to Mbarara Kabale to seek the vote of Jonad Asimwe and Calvin Echodu. without any of them, and this is factual, you can engage any of them, because these were the two candidates whose ideas resonated with my ideas.
Great.
I made my personal sacrifice to go campaign for them all over the country. Even yesterday, we were moving around rallying last minute support. All through the week when we were doing accreditation at Nakawa, we were rallying support. I did not get a single coin from either one.
What did you see? Because that matters a lot.
Yeah.
Away from the campaign for Calvin Echodu and John and Asimwe. What did you see at Kololo?
So I'm getting to that. And I've heard the comments about the money that was paid out, especially in the national vice chairperson race. I'll start by saying I have huge respect for the Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga. Huge respect. The contribution she has made for our party, the contribution she has made for women in this country, the contribution she has made for this country at large. Yes, she might have had weaknesses somewhere, but she's still an asset to our party. And I really hope today is going to be about reconciliation. I really hope that's a message the president will preach. And I really hope that the two powerful ladies, both former speaker and current speaker, can unite. The issue of money, I did not receive any money. So I cannot speak to something that I did not witness. I've heard, like you are saying, and everybody has heard this. But unless you have evidence and you can point at people who got this money and people can come and sit here and say they got that money, I cannot confirm that. But what I can say is, yes, there probably was money involved. The entrepreneur issue is a real issue, because even on Saturday in Entebbe, this was raised. The Attorney General guided that. He guided because the president asked for guidance, and the Attorney General said that this issue should be handed to security to investigate. If a specific, and I think the candidate they're referring to is Honorable Basajavalaba, because I don't vote in Entrepreneur League. I don't belong to that as a special interest group, but he's the candidate that they were probably referring to. And the guidance was, if it is found that he indeed took delegates out of the country, and all these accusations that are being leveled at him, if he wins the race, he will be nullified, and the second runner-up, or the first runner-up rather, will be promoted to that position. So it's clear, and the president has guided, the law has guided within the party through the Attorney General. So if it is true, we haven't voted the Entrepreneurs League. It has been halted. I don't know if it will happen today. Highly unlikely it will happen today. I hope it can happen today so we can get this out of the way and start focusing on the general election as a party, because this has been very destructive for us, especially this entire week. So I hope that this can be identified. If he is found guilty, I will stand behind anybody that's saying, please disqualify him and have the first runner-up take the position. But answering you in terms of the race of the second national vice president, vice chairperson, I've heard about the money. I did not receive a coin, like I've said. And again, I imagine that the Right Honorable Kadaga is going to raise that today at the delegates conference. And I think the president will guide. I don't think anything can change now. The win was so massive. I mean, you look at the results. There is nothing that you're going to dispute, whether it's money inspired or not. And also, and I would like Sarah to take note of this. I don't know if you followed live yesterday, when they were given a chance to speak right before we started to vote. I think the Right Honorable Kadaga missed a huge opportunity. When she spoke to the voters, she spoke about the wrongs that had happened in the build-up to this race. A message that she had carried on Saturday in Entebbe. She re-echoed this message. If you're speaking to a passionate person, they will listen to you and appreciate what you're saying. And many did, we did. But then, when the Right Honorable Speaker, Anita Among, came to speak, she spoke to the delegates. She spoke about issues to do with PWDs, people with disabilities. She spoke about issues that are concerning the voters. Now, people who hadn't made up their mind at that moment thought, okay, whether it was true or not, they listened. So as a politician, you have a window. You're trying to win voters because it's a game. And I think the Right Honorable Anita Among played her card right. She spoke to what the delegates wanted to hear. She spoke to their issues, and that's why it was overwhelmingly voted.
All right. That's a very interesting take, and one I'm sure you have some submissions to make on, but also help us understand, not understand necessarily, but what's your view on the shift in the party's democratic processes? This particular delegates conference and the elections, do they offer the NRM a genuine opportunity to do introspection? And if they can embark on that, do you see it happening as soon as possible to rectify what has been wrong before 2026?
Well, first of all, there were key issues broadly, and speaking in terms of governance, there was that contest between the old guard and the newcomers in the party.
Yeah, the newcomers
of course, the country, and not just NRM, the country is ready for change. If you look at the voting patterns, demographics, above 10 million voters are just young people below 30 years. 18 to 30. They can single-handedly determine the president. So when you're talking of things of the bush, I saw like President Museveni's statement, which he said is most in that book, 132 pages, saying, I want to speak about Uganda for the last 1,000 years. And then a young person would be like, what are you talking about? So, but even 40 years, so the stories of the bush, when we were in the bush, really no longer make sense. So when you come to this young generation, they want to see a country that works for them. Majority of them cannot find jobs. I don't know where Jonas was working before, but the majority of young people and his age mates cannot find any decent jobs unless you create it yourself. And how many people have the means to create
self-employment? Yeah.
So the young people are struggling with that crisis. When you look at the performance, for example, of Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, yes, but how many young people know about that? You know, it's such a long time. It's such a long time. So there is this crisis in the country, not just in NRM. And that's why NUP is attracting majority young people who are hungry for change. When you look at the second major issue was standards versus vulgarization of democracy. And that's where a battle of money, a battle of who is more successful. For example, the Entrepreneurship League, you have two successful business people at the front. Honorable, Basajawaraba and then Cesar Mulenga. These are successful entrepreneurs, but with complaints. When you look at the race for Eastern, Mike Mukula is a successful entrepreneur in this country. In all fields, water transport, whatever, energy, you know, flight, aviation, very successful. But he's complaining about vulgarization and weaponization of second elections with money. Not once, but twice. Twice. And he's on record. Video. Record. So it's not that this is a poor man seeking sympathy. No. So when the third issue then becomes the anticipated transition, which is inevitable. So when Jonas says the transition happened, so are they saying that if the two positions were not ring-fenced, they could have voted out to the chairman? Maybe. 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 Because why ring-fence them? Because I know there are people who came to pick the forms. Of course, that goes into the internal democracy, who were denied and played games by Dr. Tango Doi. Come back on Friday, and they had paid. I hope the party will refund their money. They came with the stamped bank slips of deposit of their money, but denied forms. So that also goes into the values and the integrity of the party. But on the larger scale of things, what is concerning us as Ugandans or as people who watch the governance trends in the country? You have total erosion of democratic values. Because now you cannot bring the component of free and fair credible elections and apply it to NRM. These are two opposites. Because what is freeness must be, there should be absence of coercion and manipulation. What is fair, it should be a level playing field. And maybe one would assume that NRM, if they are, really, the leadership, as he says, the new leadership has come, one of the changes I expect is that they stop such a spectacle like we watched in Kororo? How do you prevent it? Create levels of thieving candidates from the grassroots. If you want to run for SEC, after all you campaign countrywide, let's have grassroots primaries within primaries. Let's have levels of creating a competition for ideas. Put up candidates debates. Let the ideas come out. And if your own merit is money, you will not have ideas to sustain a debate. And then you knock such people out. That's if the new group is not desirous of creating fundamental change within the party. The other talk has been that SEC is just an egoistic platform, is just a platform for rubbing shoulders with the president, and of course the doctor who was competing for a post, the former head of medical association, said, I just wanted to meet the president and made it worse. So, yes, because why do you have 297 candidates running for 30 posts? Then the performance of SEC. Many people who have been there have been on record saying almost the state is controlled by the deep state. It is not SEC that calls the shots in the country. So are these young people about to change SEC to make it to do the work that is envisioned in the NRM constitution, or it will remain a talking shop and a stage where people can go to seek privileges from the president?
Because I was just going to ask the question, as a young entrant, looking at the new composition of SEC that has some young politicians, young minds, a representation of new ideas, do you honestly believe that these have the leverage to be able to influence decision making away from the entrenchment that we've seen that comes from the old guard, especially not just NRM but NRA?
Before I answer that, Chris, just to unpack a little bit of what Sarah has spoken about. She speaks about younger people and being attracted to NUP. The criticism, and for us young people who belong to the NRM, I've been a journalist for 15 years with NBS. I mean, that's where I was when I resigned to get into politics. I was working with Total Energies as a public relations officer in Police and the Tilenga project. So I have covered a bit of this country. I've moved quite a bit. And we, the young people who belong to NRM, are often criticized and said, oh, you're selfish, you're going for personal interests, you're going to look for money, which I think is a very unfortunate statement, because she's an expert in governance. And my choice to belong to a political party is entirely my choice. It's a party that I align with. I belong to a party whose ideas I align with. So if the majority of young people, as Sarah says, or suggests, are going to NUP, that is their choice. I may not necessarily resonate with the ideas that NUP stands for, and therefore I stay with the NRM. So we have very many young people, and this election was about showing that there are young people who can lead in this country, who belong to the NRM, and to demystify the idea that all young people are anti-NRM, all young people belong to the NUP, because we are here, we belong to the NRM, and we have ideas and we want to see positive change. So they are still young people. And then you speak still about the issue of money. Captain Mike Mukula, like you've mentioned, is an old entrepreneur, businessman, wealthy man, I would say. So is Dr. Chris Byakutaaga, I would imagine. Are you suggesting that these two young people, and this is probably to Sarah, these two young people that won, have more resources than these two individuals? Calvin Echodu, are you suggesting that Dr. Chris Byakutaaga and Captain Mike Mukula have less resources than the two young men?
No, when you ask
but are there resources for vote bribery?
No, Sarah and Jonah, when you ask that question, you are suggesting that Captain Mike Mukula and a whole lot of other top entrepreneurs who are complaining are a little disillusioned.
Should have deployed their resources for
not necessarily. Deploying is another thing.
I don't want
Are they disillusioned?
Disillusioned is a wrong word. I think you're trying to say they sour graping, and I don't want to use that word. I'm very careful with the words I'm using because I haven't spoken to either one of them. And
you've heard them on the media. We've run stories. You can hear them talk about, especially Captain Mike Mukula. He has also warned that if this is not taken care of or checked, the party could.
So the question I'm posing, and again I'm in full agreement, this money issue has got to be controlled. I spoke here on Monday, I said the US election runs on money. The biggest fundraiser around the country normally wins. With the exception of this last race, because Kamala Harris had a bigger war chest than Donald Trump, and she still lost.
Voter bribery is the issue here, not the amount of money that supports the logistical aspects of an election.
And we all condemn it. I don't support voter bribery. But what I'm saying is, when you hear a young, like I've said, Honorable Jonah and Honorable Echodu did not have money to bribe voters. They did not spend a coin on bribing voters. They simply traversed the country. Some of their strategies were meeting youth groups in different regions. And because they knew these young people were going to vote, they just planned their campaign out better. For those two particular cases, I know it for a fact because I've worked closely with both of them. They did not bribe a single person. And so again, for me, I don't want to pour cold water on the comments that were made, but I think it's a bit unfair to blanket every winner yesterday with a statement of they bought delegates. Because not all of them did.
Not at all.
So the other thing about the ring fencing of positions, Sarah speaks about the president, that would he have been defeated if his position, his and Alhaji Moses Chigongo's were open? Well,
maybe yes, maybe no.
Maybe yes, maybe no.
Yeah,
exactly,
let's not debate that.
But also, as a party, I think we still acknowledge the reason why he's our flag bearer is we acknowledge he's still the best leader that we have in the party. And I think that's a choice that we make as NEC. We make that choice and we endorse him as our flag bearer. Whether you argue that it's been ring fenced or not, I don't think you'll find many people openly telling you or even quietly saying that no, he's not our best choice. We still believe he's our best candidate to win us the race in this coming election. So he's a candidate that we've chosen because the party believes he's the right person.
Okay, now quickly answer my question.
Yeah, to answer your question,
about the fact that you, the young persons who are making their way into the leadership positions within the party,
we have the impact?
You're going to you're going to be locked into, and I'm afraid sometimes some of those incidents could lead to staring down the old guard, especially when it comes to design and execution of policy.
I think you watched a bit of the NEC event was live, the NEC meeting was live on TV. I think you saw the young leaders, several of those who stood up on the podium and spoke. And many of their comments were in contrary to what you want to call the old guard was standing by. We need the old leaders in our party because they are going to guide us. They are going to be the ones to show us the ropes. So we cannot discard them. And I really hope.
Can you challenge them?
Why not? Why not? Yesterday was a challenge, and that the statement was made that the young leaders are here.
I have to be very honest, especially with regard to whether it's a challenge or an opportunity that allows the young persons to finally become part of the decision-making process. There is what many believe to be a choreographed political process, one that has been worked on in the background by the old guard in order to shape who will drive their agenda into the next few years. So are you
suggesting that determined who won yesterday?
Into the next few years. Yes. Why do I say so? And I don't want to turn into an analyst myself, but I'm just trying to put context to this question, is that the democratic centralism that seems to be the working, the blueprint for the national resistance movement. And that's why many times there are leaders there who expect others to step down for them on account of what they think they've done for the party and not put up or agree to a real democratic challenge. It therefore means that most of the new entrants are a case of the old guard, the powerful behind the scenes, working to basically twitch and move the cards here and there in order to have those they want to drive the agenda occupy this position. Very quickly.
I strongly disagree with that, because if you do thorough homework and you investigate particularly Echodu and Jonad, you will actually find out that they were not aligned necessarily to the old guard. They were wildcards. Echodu perhaps to a lesser extent, but many of them were not expected to actually prevail yesterday. The Western, from what I've told, I've not seen the papers yet, but from what I've told, some of the major media outlets are actually reporting that Dr. Chris Bariomusi won the race. So that shows you that the expectation was he was going to win, and these guys simply upset the cards. But you know, we sit here and we castigate the NRM openly and sometimes unfairly.
But we castigate all political actors.
But we held a democratic process, Sarah.
Sarah's reaction.
You know why I say that?
Yeah.
Because Honorable Mao has been DP president for how long? Honorable Ken has been UPC president for how long? We don't hear the criticism that why don't they also change? Why are they ring-fencing positions?
They are not in government.
Yeah, but they are leading political parties.
Just came off very tough competition.
Yeah,
it wasn't ring-fenced.
Yeah, but my point is,
it wasn't ring-fenced.
My point is they expect to stay party chairpersons, their respective parties.
Okay, Sarah,
hold on, Chris, just
Sarah
one little thing.
I don't have a lot of time.
We held an election that other parties are not holding. UPC held a delegates conference online, and they're even in court questioning if it's a legitimate delegates conference.
It was against a court ruling.
Yeah, we had a process that involved delegates voting, and no one put a gun to our heads and forced us to vote yesterday. So I think we need to give credit that we had an open delegates conference and we voted the leaders we want.
No doubt. Thank you very much. Sarah, do you think the national resistance movement will have the moral standing to question any complaints that will be raised or might be raised by the opposition in 2026 if the elections are handled in the way it handled its own election?
Well, right from the grassroots primaries, NRM's elections were characterized by violence. You can pick examples in the hotspots, like Zimbabwe. You can look at other examples of what transpired, including underage children in the lines. This is the video evidence. And I hope that Jonas, as a journalist, first of all, you need to respect people's views. We are quoting Honorable Mukura, we are quoting Uhuru, we are quoting Right Honorable Kadaga, and other leaders like the Deputy Speaker. So these are not things we are imputing. These are senior leaders of your party. So it's not a contest of Sarah saying this and that. We are observers and analysts, and as a journalist, some of that ethical, credentials needed to be alive in your comments. But so going back to the question,
very quickly.
So if you look at the trends in NRM, and as election observers, we have been documenting, to the effect that a conclusion, methods of how NRM's strategy for power retention is either money or violence. We are going into the next elections in a few months. The violence that you saw at Kororo, throwing chairs in the youth elections in the wee hours of the morning, the violence that you saw, there were elderly women fighting, which really depressed me a lot. Throwing each other on the ground. These are the scenes that shall be dominant in the national elections. If you go by the increase of violence in elections since 2001, every election comes with increased violence. The more the competition, the more the threat for NRM to lose support in an area, the more the violence that is deployed. So their strategy, where money fails, they deploy violence to retain power.
Sarah, many thanks. We must appreciate the enthusiasm and the direction that the likes of Jonah Byakutaaga do represent, especially going forward. We do hope that CEC and the other organs of the party, including NEC, will very much be accommodative to the ideas of the young persons. I'm afraid I'm going to have to wind up this conversation, but confirmation here of something that is coming through from the Electoral Commission of the National Resistance Movement, and the word confirmed has been underlined. I do not see a confirmation for the regional vice chairperson for Western yet. What has been stated now is Eastern Region National Vice Chairperson David Calvin Echodu, Central Region Vice Chairperson Haruna Kasolo. We are yet to receive the confirmation for Western Region. That, of course, is something that we shall be waiting for, and a lot more dynamics that will